from then on, it's been a steady progress. We've done lots of gigs in Europe, Belgium, Holland, France, Spain, tour of Canada. It's gone from strength to strength, really.
Now, today's guest is a vocalist and multi-instrumentalist who sings and plays keyboards in the long-running show Logicaltramp, The Spirit of Supertramp, as well as touring in his own right with his songs from his solo albums. With a career stretching all the way back to the 80s, I'm very happy to welcome Gary Hopkins. Welcome, Gary.
Hi, Steve. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. You bring a wealth of experience, and I'm so happy that you've been able to share this with us today. Just now, there are tribute shows, and there are tribute shows. Logicaltramp take this term to a whole new level. Can we start by talking about Logicaltramp, how the band became the de facto tribute to the iconic band Supertramp?
Well, it probably started in the late 90s. Guy called Laurent Hunziger from
Okay,
Paris, saxophonist.
nice.
He befriended the Supertramp saxophonist John Helliwell.
Yeah.
Basically, they became great friends, and from that he decided, "Oh, I want to do a tribute band to
Wow.
Supertramp." He met up with a guitarist in London called Anthony Clayton,
Okay.
and in about 2003, 2004, they got together. They got some other musicians. They did a tour. In fact, John Helliwell actually guested on one of the shows, I think in Settle, I believe it's in Yorkshire.
Okay.
And basically, it took off from there. I joined a year later in 2005, just by luck. I basically did a gig in Birmingham, and I knew Logicaltramp had played at this venue a few weeks before, and I asked the sound engineer, "Oh, what were
Ah,
they like?" And he mentioned they were looking for another member, so it was just by luck that I applied and did a very scary first gig
right.
at the Hexagon in Reading
Nice.
in front of about 1,000 people
Wow.
with a couple of other tributes. So it was a bit by chance that I joined and a very scary introduction. And
That's
from then on, it's been a steady progress. We've done lots of gigs in Europe, Belgium, Holland, France, Spain, tour of Canada, places like that. It's gone from strength to strength, really. I suppose the one of the main things you'd like to know is the sounds, the
sure.
keyboard sounds.
Great keyboard sounds that you got. So I guess it's the Wurlitzer kind of sound. Is that the main sound?
Yeah, that's the sound that most manufacturers find it hard to recreate on a
Right.
keyboard. Because when I started off, I started playing semi-weighted keys.
Yeah.
So I started off on Korg keyboards. Then I progressed to a the Roland Phantom X6,
Yeah.
still semi-weighted, but at the time, they had the best Wurlitzer sound that I thought was going around.
Yeah.
Uh, in recent years, a lot of the companies have upped their game a bit,
Yeah.
especially Nord.
Yeah.
Their Wurlitzer sound is very good. It's very authentic.
Yeah.
Um, but obviously, it's a very expensive keyboard. I couldn't afford it. I had to stump up enough money to buy the poor man's Yamaha version.
There we go.
Do you know if you've heard of the CP88?
I have heard of the CPAs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a very good Wurlitzer on it. Uh, and I'm hoping to play my first gig with that keyboard
Wow.
in a couple of weeks' time.
Wow. Excellent. I mean, it's an interesting point because, you know, it's it's sounds are important, but it's also the
Yeah.
musicianship. You've got to be able to play. You've got to have the chops. That's kind of up there, isn't it?
Yes, I think with Supertramp, if you're aware of the songwriters, Rick Davis was a great pianist, very bluesy. Some of his parts are very challenging.
Yes.
Roger Hodgson, a bit more basic pop. and so a bit easier to work out. So in Logicaltramp, we did have two keyboard players. We found it hard to sort of maintain a second keyboard player because the main person actually came from the Caribbean and returned about a year ago.
Okay.
And then we found it hard to get a steady second keyboard player. So in the end, I had to basically try and do all the parts.
Right. Oh gosh.
So it's a bit of a learning curve.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so I must admit, on a few songs, we do use a backing track to sort of thicken out the songs a
Yeah.
bit. But
Yeah.
for two-thirds of the show, I'm having
Wow.
to play all the parts.
Wow.
And with Supertramp, there's a lot of hammering on the keyboard. So
Yes.
there's a lot of potential for repetitive strain injury. Songs like Dreamer, you're forever
Yeah.
smashing those keys down. There's a lot of songs like that that are very hammering on the keyboard. So um, you've got to be quite an aggressive player in a
Yeah.
way to sort of carry that off. That's probably why there's not many. There's not. I don't think there's any other Supertramp tribute in the UK.
I
There's
don't know.
several in France
Okay.
because they were big in France. They had a big live album called Paris,
Right.
and so they are big in France and parts of Canada and America. In England, they were sort of yes and no.
Okay. But they were huge throughout the world, right? I mean, it's
Oh
just
yes, yeah.
massive in the States
Oh
and all
yeah.
over the world. They
Oh
they
yes.
they're such great parts, and of course, you sing as well,
Yeah.
and as I remember, you have a really high range, which is really useful, of course, because Roger's range
Yeah.
is up there.
Yeah. So basically I'm singing a lot of Rick Davis's parts
Okay.
and also high harmonies to Roger Hodgson's parts. We have another
Yes.
singer singing a bit of Roger Hodgson stuff, and I
Yeah.
sing the higher bits to that. So that's quite challenging singing and playing.
Yeah.
You've got to try and get the monitoring just right.
Yeah.
So I use a mixture of in-ears and also a wedge.
Okay.
So some shows I use one ear in an ear monitoring system and one ear out and a wedge.
Okay.
And other songs I may use both earpieces. So I have to be quite flexible to the particular gig and the environment and the
Oh,
sound we're getting.
yeah, that's really interesting that you use a bit of both.
Yeah,
The first person I've spoken to has done that, so that just gives you that ambience, but that also that detail, I
yeah. I,
guess.
f- I find that in-ear pieces are quite sort of they do sort of take you away from the spirit of the show. They can be a bit sort of unbalancing.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's better to have one in, one out. I know a lot of audio purists think that's a bit dangerous. But I quite like that because I get a bit of the audience, a bit of my vocal and
Yeah.
stuff in the left hand ear.
Yeah.
So I pretend I prefer to use that, and I think I've seen a couple of other singers use that method as well.
Nice.
Yeah,
You guys, of course, you do some serious gigs. So if you visit, if anybody
yeah,
goes and visits Logicaltramp, uh, you got some big audiences, you got some big shows
yeah,
going on, and so you do sort of festivals in Europe and the whole trip.
yeah.
So just as far as traveling with your keyboards, do you rent when you get there, or do you take some stuff with you? What works
Yeah,
best?
we've usually got sort of a specifications list, and so I sort of ask for an 88 hammer action keyboard,
Right.
um, hopefully one that I'm already playing. If you're playing like the latest Roland or the latest Yamaha,
Yeah.
you're really lucky because if you can get that keyboard on the continent, you can just plug a USB stick in
Nice.
and load all your sounds.
Nice.
Otherwise, you're having to take a sound module
Yeah.
and run MIDI into that sound module. So it's just something extra heavy to take.
Yeah.
But generally, yes, we usually get the sort of equipment that we need.
Nice. What
Uh,
sound module do you use?
I use well, it's a Roland Phantom again, Roland Phantom
Oh yeah,
XR.
those are great.
I mean, it's about 15 years old, but it still works. I think Roland are virtually using the same sounds as they did 15 years ago
I think
in their latest expansion module. They just basically put all the external sound cards into that.
yeah.
So they haven't really changed the sounds much.
No, I don't think they have actually. I mean, I've used
Mm.
Roland for years, and see, I know you can download some stuff, but
Yeah,
the sounds that were 15 years ago, 20 years ago, were pretty good.
yeah, yeah. I think the other companies have probably, especially Nord, obviously,
Yeah,
I presume a lot of top professionals use it because they can download the sounds. It's not limited to the sounds on the keyboard. They can download the sounds that they want.
yeah,
And so that's an advantage. But of course, it is the money. And also, I found that the Nord keyboard isn't that great. That's my own personal opinion.
yeah.
It's not, I don't find it easy to play on that.
Just I've used Roland most of my life, and you just get I'm just used to it, I guess.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
feels comfortable. I've got two Rolands behind me now. I have
yeah,
Rolands on stage, apart from the Hammond that I use for organ sounds, and it's just a comfort zone. It's just what you expect out of it.
yeah, that's right. I think basically anybody aspiring to play keyboards, they need to go into a shop
Yeah.
and try every keyboard that's on display. I know it might be a bit naughty, but just go and do it because then you'll get to find out
Yeah.
what you're finding the most comfortable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes it's not about cost either. So it's just what suits
Yeah,
you. What sounds good to you
yeah,
is 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 what's right.
yeah. Also, I think you need to think about
Yes.
the weight of that, because you'll probably go on eBay and buy something. Oh, look at that! That's really cheap.
Yeah.
Then you've forgotten that it weighs 30 kilograms. How are you going to take that to a gig? Unless you've got a very friendly roadie.
Yeah. And that's
30 kilograms is a, I believe some of that, I think the Roland and the Yamaha workstations are over 30, aren't they?
they can be, yeah. And then if
Yeah.
you add a flight case to that as well,
Yes. Another five or
you're
whatever. Yeah.
yeah. Then you
Yeah.
know all about it.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So, just as far then as so that's sort of the logical tramp and your tribute to Supertramp. Can you tell us just a little bit about looking about your career? So you've had a lot, had a long, great career in music. Can you tell us how you started in music and you give some background on what you've done musically in the past?
Well, probably like quite a few people, I started off in a band at school,
Nice.
playing rock music back in the 70s. So it was heavy rock, hard rock was the big thing at school. Got into that as a drummer, actually. So I started off as a drummer, aged about 14, tried to do a bit of backing vocals, write a few lyrics, and then basically from that progressed into a band called Vixen. And it was at the time of the new wave of British heavy metal.
Okay.
We had a female singer. We got in Kerrang,
Oh, nice.
uh,
Nice.
did a few gigs. Then unfortunately that split up. And then a couple of years later, we got into a band called Tour de Force.
Nice.
And in that, still playing drums, backing vocals. We had a couple of great singers, really good singers, and I thought we were going to get somewhere. We had a couple of record company interviews, and we did a BBC session. But we found that although we wrote some good music, we probably didn't write enough. So the
Right.
first thing the record companies would say was, "Have you got any more?"
Right.
And
Right.
we had some more, but it wasn't quite up to the standard of the ones we'd written.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just it's just plenty of Spinal Tap moments,
Oh,
setting carpets on fire on stage. You know,
nice. Oh, that's great.
it's all part of the course. You know, and guitarist knocking himself out in the van,
Nice.
jumping in the van, loading stuff in, hitting the roof, knocking himself out,
Nice. Just the classic stories.
Yes,
And you can
yeah.
see some of this. You can see some of that band on YouTube still.
Yeah, yeah, we uploaded the Tour de Force, a couple of the recording sessions of the BBC session. It's on
Nice.
YouTube and Apple Music, so if you can go and listen to that,
Nice.
have a listen to what AOR sounded like back in the 80s.
Fantastic. And I heard you play drums quite a while ago and absolutely brilliant. Am I right? Were you in a Rush? Did you just a Rush tribute?
Yes, so for basically, obviously, it's hard to play a lot of gigs playing original music.
Yes.
So branched out, started doing tributes, played in a Rush tribute, did vocals,
Amazing.
keyboards, and then also did an ELO tribute,
Okay.
did vocals and rhythm guitar. And of course, you might know I did a number one's 70s theatre show.
You did?
Yeah, doing vocals. That was very good. So basically, it was something else to sort of get out there, try and make a bit of money, try and do some shows because you can't always get solo gigs or original band gigs
Yeah.
one after the other. You've got to bide your time, wait for the moment. So you've got to do something else. Otherwise, you're going to get sit at home getting rather depressed.
Sure thing, sure thing. You spoke about the solo gigs, and you've got the albums that you recorded, which I actually listened to. I've listened to them quite a few times. I really like them. They kept up on my
Yeah.
Spotify, on my if I just put it into search, and really nice. So you've done some interesting, and even recently done some interesting solo tours. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, I managed to somehow get a few dates with a guy called Eric Martin,
Sure.
who was in a fairly big American band called Mr. Big.
Yeah.
They had a US number one.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting doing a few dates with him. He was doing an acoustic tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously I had to play acoustic. I couldn't
Yes.
use any backing tracks,
Okay.
so the backing tracks had to go in the box.
Yeah,
So basically, it was quite scary getting up on stage,
yeah.
just playing piano, singing, knowing that he's coming on afterwards, wondering what's he thinking. But he was very nice. He was very
Yeah.
nice. He was very gracious, and also got a couple of opportunities to get on stage with him and sing along with his song, a couple of his songs as well. And he's touring at the moment. I think he's playing the UK in the next few weeks on Mr. Big's farewell tour.
Okay.
So yeah, that would be interesting as well.
Fantastic, man. I mean, it's just well, testament to the quality of your songs and the quality of your musicianship that you got invited to do that.
Yeah, well, I hope I didn't send the audience to sleep. I mean, they're probably they're probably expecting out and out rock songs. I think my stuff is a bit sort of poppy rock, melodic type material, but and it was also probably quite interesting for them, the audiences, because I was playing not many support acts that they had on his tour played keyboards, and also I played 12-string guitar. Not many people play 12-string guitar. They don't like it. It is quite hard to play.
It might tune up.
Yeah, forever to tune up, and then you've got to develop the grip of a tire fitter's hand.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're clenching. You have to practice clenching a racquetball every day, just to strengthen your grip.
Fantastic. Just, I mean, of course, you do all these things, as I say, just an accomplished vocalist, great drummer, very good at your drumming. You sound fantastic, man. Great songwriter, just guitar as well. with the keyboards, looking back on that, what sort of when did you start that? Did you teach yourself? Did you have lessons? What was it?
Oh
What's the
yeah.
deal with that?
Well, this is something for everybody really, and that is doesn't matter how old you are. I started drumming reasonably early at 14, but I didn't start piano keyboards until I was sort of late 20s.
Okay.
So that's pretty late. And then I didn't start guitar until I was in my 30s.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
I did actually have a go when I was young as a teenager. It hurt my fingers like hell. I thought, oh, I don't want to do this. But I think by my 20s, I was wanting to write songs. And of course,
Yeah.
you've got to really play an instrument. So I did have piano lessons,
Yeah.
got up to about grade 4. And then I thought, getting expensive, I'll try and crack on myself. But uh, yeah, I think it's really good for anybody out there to try and get a few lessons under their belt just to as a starter, and then it's up to them how far they want to take that.
Yeah.
But also it's you can start at any time in life. It's about enjoyment. I know it's hard work to learn an instrument. It's about enjoyment and it's about fulfillment, and it's very rewarding. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people must have picked up an instrument during COVID,
Sure.
thought, let's give it a go. And I hope a lot of them are still going.
Absolutely. To me, keyboards and drums kind of sit together. I think if I hadn't been a keyboard player, I would have liked to have been a drummer. And I've done drum programming in the
Yeah.
past. Bring us sort of back to some of those, great intros you were talking about, the hammering on the intro of Breakfast in America, the
Oh,
intro
right.
to
Yeah.
Logical Song, the intro in Dreamer. It's really, it's close, isn't it? It's keeping
Yeah.
that tempo. It's keeping it locked
Yeah.
into the pocket with the drummer,
Yeah.
which I think they're sort of coming from the same place, really.
Yeah. And I think, and especially also the bass guitar, because I think
Yes.
Roger Hodgson used to be a bass guitarist. I think
Oh,
he taught the Supertramp bass player a lot of the parts.
okay.
And a lot of the songs, especially, I don't know if you know the song Hide in Your Shell.
I do know that song. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the bass parts in the left hand, they're almost mimicking the bass guitar,
Right.
the way it moves up and down. So it's very interesting the way he wrote songs like that. Whereas Rick Davis probably is totally different. He's very much a blues
Okay.
pianist, and it's very complicated. Whereas Roger Hodgson is definitely more hammering, left hand doing a lot of bass movement, definitely. And of course, in those days, they had the real Wurlitzer,
Yes.
in which we did a tour in France just before COVID. COVID actually stopped the tour, and then
Oh,
when COVID ended, we were one of the first bands back in France to carry
nice.
on the tour,
Wow.
and we had a Wurlitzer,
Wow.
and it broke down about at least 3 times. It broke down
Oh.
because obviously
Uh,
this thing is 50 years old,
of course.
and yeah, one problem after the other. And talking to John Helliwell, they actually had about 3 or 4 Wurlitzers
Sure.
on tour, 2 on stage and about 2 backstage because they were always breaking down. Very, very temperamental. Of course, very valuable nowadays. People want to own a piece of history.
Of course. And we look back on all these keyboards with with great fond memories. But of course,
Yes.
nowadays, touch wood. You take a keyboard up on stage, plug it in, and it just works.
Yeah, it's in tune.
Essentially.
Because obviously,
Yeah.
back in those
Yeah.
days, pre-digital, it was you had to try and keep the thing in tune.
Of course. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, are there any sort of, if you look back on the sort of keyboards that you've had in your life, are there any that sort of stand out and go, that's the one I was really comfortable with that one. I wish I still had that one. Is there any sort of ones you've had in the past?
Well, I'm quite a sad person in that I've kept most of them.
Oh, you have. Nice.
So I've still got a Korg X3, a
That's
Korg Z1, a Korg Prophecy.
nice.
So those sort of Korg M1.
Yeah.
Uh, Unfortunately, I've got no analog keyboards. Sort of my era was the beginning of the is it PCM samples, digital keyboards.
Yeah.
Still got the Roland Phantom X6, X8. Um, I've even got still got the old Yamaha. I think it's a KX6 handheld,
Right.
the very small one.
Yeah. I remember
I
those.
think Chick Corea used it, although he's like a million times better than me. How you could play a solo on it, I just don't know.
No, I've got the Vortex, which is lovely.
Yeah,
It's just great
yeah,
because you got the can use the CME Bluetooth MIDI.
yes,
It's
yes,
you can walk. You can well, I haven't walked that far, but I've 20 meters and nothing's happened.
yeah.
Everything's works great.
That's fantastic.
All on
Uh,
batteries.
and no taxi cabs.
No, not at all. Fantastic.
That is brilliant. Yeah,
Yeah, no, they're
yeah,
great. So I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of new stuff that's really nice. But
yeah,
that classic stuff. There's always going to play place in our hearts for all that
yeah.
the older things.
Oh yeah, and a 30-meter MIDI cable.
And a
That's what
30
we
minute,
needed. That's what we needed those days.
yeah,
Tripping over it.
and masking tape to a little power cable all the way through. Yeah, I remember those days. Gee, so just as far as so Logical Tramp are, of course, on Instagram, they're on Facebook. You've got your own webpage for that.
Yeah.
You've recently got updated webpage for yourself.
Oh yes, yes, yeah. Uh, I don't know if I'm allowed to name the companies, but
Oh, okay.
no, I did have a website with Wix, and I've just switched it to
Okay.
Banzoodle.
Okay.
Uh, they're both pretty good.
Nice.
I just wanted to. I thought it was better value for money, and I thought it looked better.
Nice.
Multiple pages. The bit that obviously the trick now is to try and boost your Google ratings. I don't know if you've got a website, but with musicians generally, you've always got to try and keep your ratings up in Google to try and get to the top spot, so that when you type your name in, it's there, not competing with a load of other Gary Hopkinses.
Well, with that in mind, how do we find your website, Gary? It's
www.garyhopkins.co.uk.
fantastic,
Simple as that.
fantastic. Uh, Gary, just before we sort of end, just around, there's people who watch these vlogs, these interviews, who perhaps are just starting out or in a band and want to push it further. You've had a fantastic career, and you're doing, substantial work, touring all over, well, all over the world, really. What advice would you give to a new keyboard player looking to progress their career, perhaps follow in your footsteps? What advice would you give?
I think versatility is probably the best. Um, Try and play. Obviously, I started off on the semi-weighted keyboards and then went on to hammer action. Try and play as many keyboards as you can. Try and play acoustic piano if you've got one in the home or somewhere. Um, Also, if you're looking to join other bands, just try and get your name on the adverts, looking around on other people's adverts. Try and get your name out there. But basically, the most important thing is just playing in bands. You can practice as much as you want at home, but it actually taking that out to playing in a band live is a whole different kettle of fish. Stage nerves is a big problem because believe you me, you can play everything right 100% at home. As soon as you get on stage, it's, oh, what are these notes? What's happening here? So it can be very disorientating. So as much live practice as you can get um, in as many bands if you can play more than one band, if they'll let you do that. Just as much experience in different types of music. I think that will put you in good stead then to move on to a bigger level because you've got a wider base of experience, of knowledge, playing ability, basically anything that somebody can throw at you. I'm not too very good at improvising. I prefer things written down,
Yeah.
either music or in notes or anything like that. So if you can try and listen to as much stuff as possible, try and pick up things by ear, that's even better. Something I
Nice.
probably can't do as well as I should do, really, and that's play by ear.
Okay.
Probably that's probably coming back from a drumming background. I didn't have to learn any notes. You just have to hit things.
And just who do you like to listen to? So if you're just it's Sunday evening, you're going to chill out now.
Yeah.
Who you gonna listen to? Who do you enjoy listening to?
Well, it's a bit embarrassing because some of my friends are into heavy rock. I do like a lot of heavy rock, but I do like a lot of other stuff. Crosby, Stills, Nash, Young,
Nice,
The Cause, everything like that. And
nice.
basically, the CD collection's vast, so it's everything from one end to the other.
Yeah,
And a lot of people will probably take the mickey out of me for that, but
I do the same.
but then I get to appreciate that the bands that have come after certain bands, you can see where they've copied, like the Eagles coming after Crosby, Stills, Nash and
Yeah,
Young. You
yeah,
can see, oh, they're where they've copied their ideas from,
yeah,
and the harmonies and things like that. It's
yeah.
very interesting how music progresses and goes round in circles. It is
That's
very interesting. So basically, I'll listen to everything and anything,
fantastic.
but probably not rap or
Yeah,
drum and
no,
bass.
no, I understand. I'm on the same page there. But I think we have very similar tastes in music. You mentioned harmonies now, so just on with the Logical Tramp show, how many people are singing on stage?
Well, it's most of the time it's three people, yeah. So it'll be myself on keys and vocals and another vocalist doing a lot of the Roger Hodgson stuff, and then we've also got bass player who sings as well. Yeah, so predominantly it's two-part harmonies, and now and
Okay,
again you'll get an extra bit.
they're
So,
quite prominent harmonies, aren't they? They're quite sort of
yes, yeah,
they're instantly recognizable. That's part of the song.
yeah, and a lot of the um, a lot of the screechy high stuff you can hear. Some of the time that was John Helliwell on sax doing that. He was quite versatile because he was not only doing sax and other woodwind, he was playing a bit of keyboards, he was doing backing vocals, and he was also the onstage raconteur. He was doing most of the talking between songs.
Okay,
So he's probably the unsung hero behind the two songwriters.
nice, nice.
And it was nice to share the stage with him in Paris last December.
Yes.
Was it November? I can't remember.
Was fairly recently that he
Yes,
joined
yeah,
you on stage.
yeah, for the whole show. So and he got to sit down in the iconic deck chair on
What?
stage when he wasn't playing, just
Fantastic.
just to listen and reminisce.
Well, if as a tribute band, you want to know if you're doing the right thing. When some of the guys from the original band come and join you, you got to
Yeah.
know pretty much nearly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was nice to have him along. Yes, yeah, yeah.
Fantastic.
I think he enjoyed it. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I mean, I noticed you're playing a Roland Juno, aren't you, at the moment? Is it the DS?
I play a DS,
Yeah,
and then so I use that for piano and for strings and
yeah,
for synths, and then I've got the Hammond SK2, which I
yeah,
I, I use for all the Hammond sound. Uh, so those are my main sort of keyboards that I use.
yeah. Because I've had the Roland RD 2000
Yeah.
for the last year. At
Okay.
first,
Okay.
I thought this is really light. It's great.
Yeah.
After about a year, I found that the hands get really tired,
Yeah.
and I think I've sussed it is the keys don't bounce back as quickly
No.
as on the older Roland pianos, and also some of the Yamaha.
Yeah.
It's like somebody said it's like a soft bottom.
Yeah,
It doesn't spring back, so you're putting more effort in.
yeah. And you can set the how whether they're light or medium or heavy on the Roland.
Yeah,
But even the light is still
it changes the tone of the sound. Then it makes it really bright.
it does make it really bright.
So I
Absolutely.
think what Roland should do is like keep the sounds or perhaps improve them slightly, but then use the key bed from say the 700 series.
Yeah.
Is it the SX or the NX
Yeah.
700, something like that,
Yeah.
where it's just more responsive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably just a personal choice.
So Gary, thank you so much for your time today, for coming along and sharing this really inspiring journey that you've had in music, the wonderful work that you do with Logical Tramp, your solo stuff, a little bit of your history. Gary, I hope you've enjoyed this. We've certainly have. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks, Steve, for having me. Brilliant.